Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Thursday evening. It is 9 o'clock. Time to gather in the Royal Library and have a live stream. But first, as always, a little music. Enjoy. We are all the heirs to Scotland, as a nation proudly stand. We will march beneath her banners to protect our ancient land. In the glens and cities, there on every street, are the living heroes no army will defeat. Let a flag mean freedom and not a battle drum. To the world we bid a welcome in 1,000 different ways. We will toast to long lost friendships as we build our better days. In the glens and cities, there on every street, are the living heroes no army will defeat. Let our flag mean freedom and not a battle drum. We are all the heroes of Scotland. We're a nation hand in hand. We will march beneath her banners to protect our ancient land. In the glens and cities, there on every street, are the living heroes no army will defeat. Let our flag mean freedom and not a battle drum. Good evening, folks. Streaky bacon. Ludwig van Beethoven. Good evening, Ludwig. Good evening, Ragnar. Skywalker. Where is he? He's there. Skywalker. Good evening. Oh, there's William. So anyway, weather report. It's quite a good day today, not as bright and sunny as it was. But any day in Scotland that doesn't rain is a bonus. So today was a bonus in the sense that it wasn't raining. Oh, there's Gammon Sandwich. Good evening, Gammon Sandwich. New painkillers tonight. High as a kite. Lurking. Evening all, he says. Oh dear. Oh, there he is. I never noticed that. Creeping in there with me not noticing. Scots Armour. Good evening, sir. A pinch and a punch for the first day of the month. Not heard that one before. October. Good evening, sir. So yeah, we're back at Thursday again, eh? Don't the weeks just hurry along? They don't need any help, they just flurry past in endless procession. It's quite something. So, what should I embark upon tonight? Yeah, and of course, I don't, I'll state the obvious. It's an illusion, of course, but it seems uh, when you get older, it goes quicker, but it doesn't really. It's just you're more uh, aware of it passing. Stricky, I thought you were great on Sensum Stream. Well, thank you, Streaky. Very deep questions if you're trying to answer it properly, of course. And it's questions that need to be considered. Streaky suggesting I take a bucket load of Valium to slow the day down. Yeah, I don't know if I care for that solution, Streaky. The crunchy. Yeah, thank goodness it's crunchy. Buck and I are taking the boys camping at the weekend. Looking forward to it a lot. Yeah, I noticed that going on between the two of you in the chat that you're trying to get together on this. And that's terrific. I mean, that is building a real community in the real world. And as far as I know, the three lads involved are all close in terms of age. And if they've never been camping before, this will be a grand adventure for everyone. That'll be good. It might be the first of many such outings. And I'm really pleased that you've managed to make that connection. And there he is himself. Hello, Packer. So yeah, I mean that just proves that it works. And as I've said before, online and offline, being able to create friendships on such an artificial platform as YouTube, I mean, it's bordering on the miraculous, really, if you think about it. That people, despite the limitations of the technology that we're using, despite that, people can somehow make these connections. To me, that's bordering on the miraculous. And of course, that will only increase you know the connection between both of you and the children, of course. That'll be a big adventure for the three of them. If it's free, I'm sure it is. I love camping, but no more than 4 days, says William. I did it a few times when I was quite young. You know, obviously, for the short time that I was in the Boy Scouts, I went camping with them. One time only. I might add, that was my first time camping. And it was a big adventure. I remember it being a big adventure. Never went far, just down the coast a little bit. And it was something really adventurous, you know, away from my only parent at that time, sleeping under canvas for the first time, trying to cook food over an open fire and all of that stuff. But it was still an adventure. I mean, I still have fond memories of it. And the other time that I did it, well, I've done it twice more when I think on it. I did it with the fella that was eventually going to become the lead guitarist in my group, a lad called Brian Walsh. And I was just down as far as, well, this won't mean anything to any of you really except Alison. It was just down to Lunderson Bay, which is just from where he lived. It was a walk over the hill and you were essentially there. And it was okay. That was fine. And then the next time I tried the camping was the group. We had worked really hard, you know, playing almost every night of the week. And if we weren't playing, we were rehearsing. So the idea was we would take some of this hard-earned money and we would go on holiday together. And I had a big tent at that point, a real big tent, real sort of army style tent, and heavy canvas and all that. And that's where we went to Northern Ireland. We went to Portrush, in fact. I'd never been, obviously, in Ireland before. And we had a whale of a time. But again, I say whale of a time, but we didn't do anything, outrageous, I don't think. Some people might think it. Packer, Joe and I went camping with the scouts. Guess where our scoutmaster ended up and why a few years later? I take it the rest of the answer will come a bit later. Uh, That's one way to describe it, Streaky. That's one way to describe it. I like the people who camp in the countryside more than the campers in the town centre who swear at me and ask me for spare change. No, I had a whale of a time in Ulster. You met a girl. I even met a girl. Yeah, a lovely girl. I still got her photographs. Yeah, you could say it was a holiday romance. Nothing more than that. Good evening, Trevor M. Good evening, John. I have been on the telephone call on. And obviously, Ragnar will know Portrush. And we found this, as you would expect in Ireland in those days. The, the pub wasn't that far away. And we had taken, myself and Brian Walsh had taken acoustic guitars. And it was in the days when porter was still available in the pubs. And I really, really took to that drink. I really liked porter. Before it was reinvented, of course. And we played our guitars, of course, as you would expect. But what made it all the more joyful was that as people come in, as locals come into the bar, this was a room off the bar. You went up a couple of steps and you were into this room with a bench all the way around, and which is where we were. And before you know it, people are arriving with tin whistles and fiddles. And it ended up, a real musical get together. And a terrific time, people singing and nobody bothering you. It was just marvellous. Really, Ragnar, it's that close, is it? That's amazing. Well, you know exactly the place I'm talking about. It's obviously it'll have changed. I'm talking about back in the 1960s, of course. And one of the great things I always remember uh, was, and one of the occasions we were walking to the pub, a man with a horse and a cart stopped and gave us all a lift, which was terrific. That was a whole experience in itself. Um, I'm not sure what you call those cars, but you'll have seen them in the movies. where it's designed for passengers. It's a small thing, a two-wheel cart of some sort, and he gave us a lift into the can't even call it a village to where the pub was. It was terrific, and we were blessed. We had good weather. It was not raining at all. I don't want to embellish the weather in case I'm embellishing, but I don't remember it ever being raining on those 5 days or 6 days that we were there. But it was really good. And yeah, great memories. As I say, I still got that girl's photographs. Um, Very nice girl. She told me things that I was shocked at, of course, because I'd never heard some of these things that she was talking about, that Catholic and Protestant boys and girls weren't allowed to come together. It was all very much frowned on and discouraged. She told me about, I can't remember, I think it was a cousin or something, had been going with the lad from the opposite community, and she'd been sent off to Liverpool out of harm's way, so to speak. And that all was a bit of a shocker for me. I'd never heard of anything like that. And here's the thing that I'm sure you'll all find funny was that seems to be a bit of a lag. The Scoutmaster was a nonce, not you. Well, I obviously didn't see the comment back. Yeah, the thing that puzzled me greatly was it seemed, and I stress that, it seemed as though everywhere you went, there was these signs and posters and things that had this red hand on it, which I had never seen, and I didn't know what it meant. And when I asked, I was told this is the Red Hand of Ulster, which didn't add very much to my knowledge, of course. I still didn't really know what it was all about. And that shows you how naive and innocent I was on these religious sectarian matters. I brought these badges back. I bought them. I think I bought one for my granny and probably bought one for my mother and one for myself, not knowing what it meant. I also uh, giant causeways, and again I was quite surprised that none of my relatives or anybody I knew at that time had ever heard of Giant's Causeway. Amazing. So we're obviously a much more innocent time than it is now. Just amazing. But it's always been a pleasant memory, and I think that was uh, part of the reason why much later in the 1970, 69, 70, when I had a motorcycle, I decided that I would go on this grand circular tour down the west coast of the UK, starting here, of course, go to Wales and get the ferry across into the Republic, and then drive up the east coast to Belfast and get the ferry back to Scotland. And that was definitely a factor in it. That I'd been there before and I had such fond memories of it all. And that trip, again, was a marvelous trip. I'm so glad I did it. And I've spoken about it before when I made this trip. And the thing that I deliberately did, I was working in a particular place that I needed to know the time. So I was wearing a watch at that point. So I took the watch off and left it behind. I didn't take any road maps or compass or anything like that. I actually just used the sun to keep me right. Good evening, Edmund 184. And again, I thoroughly enjoyed my well, not just the experience of Ireland, but the whole trip. I kept to B roads all the time. Well, that's not true. I actually had to come on to like a dual carriageway to speed my way past Blackpool. I wanted to get past that as quickly as possible. But then it was back to B roads again. So I easily found my way just using the road signs. And when you're on holiday like that, especially with your own transport, you can keep your own clock. You can keep your own timetable. The only thing that had any kind of pressure added to it was the fact that I had bought the ferry ticket in advance. So I knew that I had to be in the Dockland on a certain date. But apart from that, it was all open-ended, and I just kind of followed my intuition and followed the road and saw some beautiful countryside, not just in the UK, but in Wales as well. Ludwig is saying, my mechanic mate was showing me a photo clip today, a phone clip today, of him evading Swiss police at about 160 miles an hour on his Kawasaki. He's in his mid-60s. Oh, then changed my broken suspension spring for free legend. Wow. I bet that was some adventure, that. Yeah, that's it, Edmund. I've done that as well. You'll take the high road and I'll take the B road, and I'll be in Scotland afore you. Yep. Yeah, I did a lot of that in Scotland as well. We had, by the time I had the motorbike, I had bought myself a modern uh, two-man tent, if you like, with a sewn-in ground sheet and all that. I only ever used it for sleeping, and I had no camping equipment whatsoever. It was just for sleeping in. I would use roadside cafes and chippies when I found them, and that was fine. I don't think, no, I don't remember. If I did, if I stayed overnight anywhere in Scotland, it would be in the tent, and it would be only overnight. I didn't do anything longer than that in Scotland. I don't know why, but I just didn't. I think there was too many places near and nearby that I hadn't seen, and I did a lot of that. In a sort of 50-mile radius of the town here. I did a fair bit of that at one point. And then after I met Helen, we had a car, in those days. And I remember that one Friday evening, or Friday afternoon, it was glorious, just like this week, in fact. And I, out of the blue, said, "Why don't we go up for a drive?" Yeah, sure. So we went up to Glencoe. Helen had never been camping at all, so this was something new for her. And I've got photographs of that. Again, that was all we took, was a tent. We weren't too far. There was a camping area, but it wasn't too far from the local hotel where we got food. I know. I'll drop the image. I don't like this, that I can't have the green screen working. Thanks for that, Trevelyan. Skywalker, rubbing the flying ointment and miss out the roads altogether as the crow flies. Wink, wink. Well, I've taken it off. I know it's a shame. I don't. It never used to be that. I think it's still more to do with the computer, to be honest. It may be because I've got so much on the desktop here. Ah, there's Julia. Good evening, Julia. And it so happened while we were there, Helen and I, in Glencoe, there was a group of army lads on exercise. The army have got a camp up there, a permanent camp. No, I don't, Streaky. I don't have one of Bird's Nest. Yeah, please do, Trevelyan. Please do. You may have some ready-made answer to that. That's my ready-made answer. Maybe I've got so much. You have no idea how much stuff I've got on the desktop here. It's quite a lot. And obviously, when I started out, I didn't have this amount. Take the high road. Oh, take the high road. Low road is about 2 prisoners in the tall booth awaiting execution. A sad basis of the poem. Yeah. So yeah, back to this anecdote with Helen and I camping. So we're sitting in the hotel. The army boys are getting drunk. We are getting a little drunk. And who's thinking about drinking and driving? Well, certainly not I. So we get invited back to the army camp for more drink. And these army lads, well, they made the mistake of trying to outdrink Helen. And she could drink. She could put it away, Helen. She really could. And then they started this other nonsense. They were trying to shock her. I think that's what it was all about, trying to shock her, macho stuff. So one of them gets a slice of bread and he's got it on his hand, right? Puts a slice of bread there. And with the other hand, catches a Danny Longlegs and sticks it on the bread, folds the bread over and begins to eat it, right? Trying to horrify Helen. Of course, by this time, Helen is close to being on the wrong side of sobriety. And what does she do? Well, she takes a slice of bread, grabs a Danny Longleg, puts it on a piece of bread, folds it over and begins to eat it. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Just to show that she wasn't shocked. So that was an enjoyable night. We left there, of course, and I, of course, drove back down to where the tent was parked. And I think we had something of a short hangover after that. And of course, because it's a campsite, we wakened up to all those glorious smells of bacon and egg being fried all over the place. It was a mad dash for the hotel at that point, trying to get some cooked food. Packer, on the last stream when looking for the gunfighter, it got mentioned that there is a remake. It is not. It's a very funny short film I can highly recommend. I have seen that, Packer. That's the one with the voiceover, isn't it? And the stranger came into town and he goes into the bar and it's the voiceover all the time. And they hear it. He hears the voiceover. I'm sure that's what you're talking about. It's hilarious, yeah. I used to have that parked away to show on here. And I think I may have done ages ago. No, there is a version that is colorized, and I don't advise watching any colorized black and white film. And I was watching it. I decided to watch it the other night, The Gunfighter. It's a good little film. At least I think it is. There's lots in it. And it's the first of its type. So we're talking about the same film, yeah. It's a voiceover part, you know. Hilarious stuff. The kind of thing you used to get in films, of course. You still do. You still get films with a monologue. If you haven't, when you see it for the first time, this film that I think it is called The Gunfighter. If you haven't seen it, it starts off. It looks as though it's just a straightforward western with a voiceover attached to it. But it's a lot more. I'm going to bring on one of these shorts again, and it's somebody that I don't personally care for. But it was on his channel that I saw this thing. And I don't care for Joe Rogan. I hope that doesn't upset too many people. I know he's incredibly popular, but I really don't care much for him. And there we go.
Never gain any ground over root beer when root beer is so much more delicious.
It had cocaine in it.
Ooh, that's right.
All those years, people were drinking that shit. When did they take cocaine out?
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
They didn't. They don't have the active ingredient in cocaine, but they're flavored with coca leaves. Coca-Cola gets its coca leaves from a manufacturer that strips them to make medical grade cocaine. What people don't know, like, well, cocaine's illegal. No, it's not. Cocaine is not illegal. Cocaine is illegal for you, but it's not illegal for the medical industry. So they bring in coca leaves and they use the flavor from that coca leaves to this day to flavor Coca-Cola.
What medical use does cocaine have?
You can make lidocaine with it, which is a numbing agent. They put on people when they're having operations. They pump that shit up my nose.
So when they say it's liquid cocaine, it literally is liquid cocaine.
The kid I kidnapped.
That's different. Lidocaine is different because it doesn't have the psychoactive effects. But what it does do, it makes you feel like shit. I put some on my back last week because I had a really bad sunburn. Fucked with my system, like I could tell. How did Coca-Cola ever gain any ground over root beer when root beer is so much more delicious?
It had cocaine in it.
Ooh, that's right.
All those years, people were drinking that shit. When did they take cocaine out?
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
They didn't. They don't have the active ingredient in cocaine, but they're flavored with coca leaves. Coca-Cola gets its coca leaves from a manufacturer that strips them to make medical grade cocaine. What people don't know, like, well, cocaine's illegal. No, it's not. Cocaine is not illegal. Cocaine is illegal for you, but it's not illegal for the medical industry. So they bring in coca leaves and they use the flavor from that coca leaves to this day to flavor Coca-Cola.
What medical use does cocaine have?
You can make lidocaine with it, which is a numbing agent. They put on people when they're having operations. They pump that shit up my nose.
So when they say it's liquid cocaine, it literally is liquid cocaine.
The kid I kidnapped.
That's different. Lidocaine is different because it doesn't have the psychoactive effects. But what it does do, it makes you feel like shit. I put some on my back last week because I had a really bad sunburn. Fucked with my system, like I could tell. How the did Coca-Cola ever gain any ground over root beer when root beer is so much more delicious?
It had cocaine in it.
Ooh, that's right.
All those years, people were drinking that shit. When did they take cocaine out?
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
They didn't. They don't have the active ingredient in cocaine, but they're flavored with coca leaves. Coca-Cola gets its coca leaves from a manufacturer that strips them to make medical grade cocaine. What people don't know, like, well, cocaine's illegal. No, it's not. Cocaine is not illegal. Cocaine is illegal for you, but it's not illegal for the medical industry. So they bring in coca leaves and they use the flavor from that coca leaves to this day to flavor Coca-Cola.
What medical use does cocaine have?
You can make lidocaine with it, which is a numbing agent. They put on people when they're having operations. They pump that shit up my nose.
So when they say it's liquid cocaine, it literally is liquid cocaine.
The kid I kidnapped.
That's different. Lidocaine is different because it doesn't have the psychoactive effects. But what it does do, it makes you feel like shit. I put some on my back last week because I had a really bad sunburn. Fucked with my system, like I could tell. How did Coca-Cola?
There you go. You might not have caught that before. I just don't care for him at all. I know he's got this big reputation and all that, makes loads of money. I just don't care for him. I don't know. There's something. I think it's more of a performance than it is anything else. Streaky. I told the police the half of kilo of cocaine they found up my bum was to cure hemorrhoids. I tell you. Streaky and brown lines. Hilarious, you folk. So there is that. So now you know, folks. It used to be filled with cocaine. But up until 1947, it is true, of course, that you could get these things quite legitimately, and they were used very often in medicines of the day. It all changed in 1947 in the USA when the landowners, the big landowners, pressured the US government into making it illegal so that they would have to use timber in order to produce paper. Up until then, it had been used in the plant of marijuana. And that changed everything. And it's been that way ever since. And I've told you before, I'm sure you know this already, that Henry Ford made two cars, one to run on petrol and one to run on the extraction of hemp. I hope having the image off the screen has helped the sync problem. Yeah, that seems to cure it, and it doesn't seem to matter how complex the image is or how simple the image is. It just seems to be that the minute I put an image up, the out of sync comes in. But I think it's to do with the amount of stuff I've got scattered across my desktop, and I have got a lot of stuff. And they're mainly folders with, you know, plenty of stuff inside them. So apologies for that. I keep meaning to ask my son about it, but it always goes out of my head. So there you go. My argument about marijuana is it's a naturally growing plant. Not the kind of stuff that you get now, of course. Well, that's it. October, your computer will be struggling with real-time anti-aliasing. Yeah. And this computer has got lots of room for graphics and stuff because it was put together for that because of my making videos and putting music to them. I needed plenty of if you put a picture up of the band in sync, So anyway, sooner or later I'll need to try and do something about it because it's a terrible waste of, you know, my son's money buying me the green screen and all that. Just out of curiosity, let me try something else. When you click and say you don't have a green screen, see what happens then. That's it that's it saying I don't have a green screen. So you see that I lose all of the cubbyhole imagery, and that's a River Clyde, by the way. But you'll see often a halo, and it's still out of sync. Still out of sync. A few seconds out of sync. Yeah, it's instantly out. So it doesn't matter whether you know, the software knows that you're running a green screen or not. It's the image. Once the image is up there, that's when the sync problems start. So to me, that's something more to do with the computer. Anyway, here's a change of subject. See what you make of this. This will be more relevant to those who have got kids in school that go for school lunches.
This school lunch is from my home country of Turkey, and I can confirm they like to leave one part of the tray empty because of budget cuts. Apparently, in Estonia, the lunch ladies like to vomit in the food before serving it to students. In parts of Romania, they serve you this giant cashew fortune cookie mix looking thing. When we get to Italy, now we're talking. Look at the amount of grapes they serve you. That's so much. And South Korea definitely cares about giving their students plenty of vegetables. Those vegetables actually look appetizing. The same can't be said about this American lunch where the vegetables just make you want to cry. Russia doesn't surprise me. They serve borscht for lunch. I just wish they would also serve a shot of vodka alongside it. In Spain, they actually give you shrimp for lunch. You know you're living large when they give you expensive seafood. And just when I thought I couldn't be any more disgusted with British food, here we are. Forget that disgusting wieners and beans. They place their silverware in the middle of the tray. Let's have a look at some school lunches from around the world. This school lunch is from my home country of Turkey, and I can confirm they like to leave one part of the tray empty because of budget cuts. Apparently, in Estonia, the lunch ladies like to vomit in the food before serving it to students. In parts of Romania, they serve you this giant cashew fortune cookie mix looking thing. When we get to Italy, now we're talking. Look at the amount of grapes they serve you. That's so much. And South Korea definitely cares about giving their students plenty of vegetables. Those vegetables actually look appetizing. The same can't be said about this American lunch where the vegetables just make you want to cry. Russia doesn't surprise me. They serve borscht for lunch. I just wish they would also serve a shot of vodka alongside it. In Spain, they actually give you shrimp for lunch. You know you're living large when they give you expensive seafood. And just when I thought I couldn't be any more disgusted with British food, here we are. Forget that disgusting wieners and beans. They place their silverware in the middle of the tray. Let's have a look at some school lunches from around the world. This school lunch is from my home country of Turkey, and I can confirm they like to leave one part of the tray empty because of budget cuts.
That looks revolting to me. I don't know about you folks. That just looks totally revolting.
Apparently, in Estonia, the lunch ladies like to vomit in the food before serving it to students. In parts of Romania, they serve you this giant cashew fortune cookie mix looking thing. When we get to Italy, now we're talking. Look at the amount of grapes they serve you. That's so much. And South Korea definitely cares about giving their students plenty of vegetables. Those vegetables actually look appetizing. The same can't be said about this American lunch where the vegetables just make you want to cry. Russia doesn't surprise me. They serve borscht for lunch. I just wish they would also serve a shot of vodka alongside it. In Spain, they actually give you shrimp for lunch. You know you're living large when they give you expensive seafood. And just when I thought I couldn't be any more disgusted with British food, here we are. Forget that disgusting wieners and beans. They place their silverware in the middle of the tray. Let's have a look at some.
Quite revolting, most of it. I'm glad I never went for my school lunch in these countries. Treble M. There is a restaurant opening up in Hampstead selling cricket flour pizza. Well, when I was in school, of course, I got a free lunch. Parker, Mrs. Parker is a school cook and they serve nice grub. Sometimes she brings some home and it's actually tasty. not like the shit I got at school. Well, Laura also was a canteen lady. And they served pretty edible food back then. It all went astray in this country when politicians started listening to Jamie Oliver and idiots like him. Steve, Americans laughing at our food makes me chuckle. Have you tasted their cheese or chocolate? I have not, to be honest. All I remember about our school meals, says Ludwig, was the occasional pink custard. Weird. No, I remember because, again, because my mother was a widow, I received a ticket for the canteen and was served a 3-course meal every day. Soup, of course, then a main meal, some variation of mince and potatoes, and then a custard, usually with a little piece of cake in it. But of course, again, it's all to do with the personality of my mother. That wasn't good enough for her son. So she found this works canteen. It was an engineering works, Hastie's Engineering. They made pipes for shipyards and whatnot, for the engines, boilers and what have you. But they had a works canteen right next to their factory, and it was only a short walk from the school to this canteen. And my mother took me there one day, met me at school at lunchtime, and walked me over to this place and spoke to the canteen ladies, and obviously was asking would it be okay for me to go there for my lunch. And obviously it turned out, yeah, it was okay. So she would give me the money, and that's where I would go. For the biggest part of when I was in secondary, that's where I would go for my lunch. I would go to Hastie's canteen and sit amongst the men with their boiler suits and all that. And it was great. It was just straightforward homemade cooking, homemade soups. And they would have a big bowl, big steel bowl filled up. And that was in the days when you could get a Scottish plain loaf uncut. And these ladies would chop this bread into big chunks so you could help yourself to a big chunk of bread for dipping in the old soup. It was brilliant. I think it was, if my memory serves me correctly, it would cost 1 in threepence. I'm not going to do the calculation on that, but that's less than it's less than 10p in today's money. Salt of the earth, streaky. Birds that work in canteens are the best. Salt of the earth. Yeah, Laura spent about, I think she spent the better part of 20 years in the school canteen. Toba, beans and molasses with pork through. He obviously enjoyed it. Hussein, I always thought our chocolate was really bad. Oh, it's not so great now. I think it was because it was pink because the powder they used was coloured that way. I think it's that simple. Because it would be made at home. My mother would make that, my granny would make that. But it was a custard powder. So they would just mix it in with the milk. But it always came out that yellowy pink colour. We have a critic here. Skywalker, school dinners, wee shit. Well, obviously, at the time, I was not enamoured by these school lunches, although I was getting mine at no cost to my mother. So I must have been saying something and complaining about it for her to go to all this bother, but she did. And so I would go along there, you know, a schoolboy, in amongst all these engineering men with their boiler suits. And it was very basic, you know, it wasn't anything posh or anything. It was just a fold-up bench with fold-up seat, you know, a bench seat, just like the school ones. There's nothing elaborate about it, but good stuff. Skywalker used to sell my dinner ticket and bunk off in town. Yeah, there were other boys that did that sort of stuff. I wasn't as enterprising as that, I'm afraid. I was too honest, too naive, too frightened to be caught, to be honest. These are the things that we did as boys. I used to go into town for lunch, and sometimes not go back to school. You know, when I was a boy like that, going to first of all primary and then secondary school, it never once occurred to me not to go. I could have done that regularly and no one would ever have known. It just never occurred to me not to go to school. I was trusted to get myself ready and go out in the morning to school and stay at school until it was finished. Never occurred to me. Odd that. Again, I'd probably be too worried that I'd get caught because I would no idea what the punishment might be for that. Well, that's what they used to sell in Hasty's canteen. That was the first. You got three. Again, you got three courses for one and threepence. The soup, the main meal, and some kind of custard. It might not have been necessarily custard. It might have been tapioca, which I didn't like, or rice. I like how they smell of chips in bed. Says Streaky. It's amazing, I tell you. Anglo. And Maggie stopped her children having free bottled milk at school. Yes, she did indeed. She did indeed. That was one of the things when again, in my time in secondary school, they introduced, this was all new things that were coming into the school. Obviously egged on by a younger generation of teachers, but they brought the idea of prefects into the school, which had, was completely new. And of course, most of these prefects ended up being myself and my small group of pals. And that was one of the things that we used to do. We had this area where all the milk was stored. So the teacher would send two pupils down in the morning, and they would have a note for how many bottles of milk they were to collect. And it was our responsibility to make sure that that's what they got, not a bottle less or a bottle more. So I remember that very well, Anglo. There was a bit of a ruckus when she stopped it. But like too much in this country, the ruckus came to nothing. And it passed and became history. Like too many of the things in this country. Streaky, the first time I ever cried from being caned was when I was 9. I put mashed potato on a spoon and flung it at a cupboard in the canteen, and it stuck to it. I can imagine you holding it, isn't it? Ding. Boys for you. Yeah, she was allowed to get away with it. And she wasn't Prime Minister at the time. Yeah, she was secretary for education, I think. Ludwig, I caught the tail end of and free milk. Seemed like a good policy to help calcium intake for the nation's youth, but a bit unpleasant as a kid. Always left in the sun until it was lukewarm. Well, again, I can only speak for my own school. This was an area that didn't have those problems. It was really an unused cloakroom, and that's where it was stored. So it never received any direct sunlight. So I don't recall ever having that problem. But yes, I mean the whole idea of it was, of course, was to help those children who were coming from poorer houses that might not have the money to stretch to a glass of milk for the children in the household to drink. I mean, that came right on the back of the end of the Second World War, really. That stuff. Ah, she got called that for a long time, Skywalker, Margaret Thatcher, of the milk snatcher. It took a few years for that to fade away from her name. Well, that's nice. Treble M, I went home for dinner time. My mum gave me lovely food rather. You see, that was another thing that I was opposed to. Was I don't know how this applies to English schools, but certainly in Scotland, school lunchtime was an hour and a quarter. That meant in those days, because most people lived within walking distance or running distance from the school itself. So a lot of children could go home and get lunch at home because, again, very few women, if any, were out working. The only working women really in those days were women like my own mother, widows, and there were reserved jobs for widows. So fast forward, and now the teachers are up in arms because they want a shorter lunch break, because they really want to finish earlier in the day. In my time, we finished at 5 to 4 in the afternoon. But there was a movement within the teaching throughout Scotland that this was too long a day for them. So they rejigged it all. The whole school day was rejigged into what it now is. And that shortened the lunch break to 45 minutes. So now nobody can really go home. But it allowed teachers to finish earlier at 3:30. And that was all it was about. Well, that's just stupid, isn't it? Ludwig saying stored on top of a radiator. Jesus. Or in bright sunlight. So I was against this. I was against shortening the lunch break because it prevented so many children from going home for lunch. So now you're at the mercy of the school canteen. And that was fine for, a good number of years until Jamie Oliver got his nose in. And then we went into the rabbit food mode, as I call it. It's all got to be healthy foods, rabbit food, salads, all this stuff. And what people like him never appreciated was there are children, and still are, who depended on the school lunch because it's the only lunch and food that they're going to get that day. And that's just the truth of it. Not always because of poverty. Often it was that, but also there were children whose parents were more interested in buying alcohol, and so we're always short, we're always irresponsible. So these children were, I would say they were really victimized in that sense. A few schools, I think they still do it. Some schools that they did when I was working in them. Some of the schools would get the canteen staff to come in early, and they would have what they call a breakfast club for children. And that would be the children who were just thrown out in the morning or put themselves out in the morning. Without anything to eat. But then they could get something to eat at the school. If it's sliced roll and a cup of tea, so be it, or whatever it was they wanted. It was that kind of snack thing. And that was, to me, a big step forward for a lot of children. It's too easy for people like the Jamie Olivers of the world to think that we're all coming from a highly civilized, well-funded family unit, when that isn't necessarily the case. Streaky saying the milk withdrawal started under Labour in the early 1970s, but Thatcher, under instruction from Heath, reduced the age. There you go. Labour Party is no friend of the working people. Good grief. Steve is saying the headmaster, he was he replaced what called, ironically, Mr. Kane. He was sacked for spanking boys bare bottoms, apparently. Wow. Yeah, that was the old strap up, yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one, Skywalker. We had a plunky truant officer called Mr. Chaser. Mr. Chaser. I kid you not. The old truant officer, eh? Don't have anything like that now. Too busy with interpreters. Steve is saying, my welfare lady. Your welfare lady was called Mrs. Leach. Yeah, teachers need to finish earlier because 13 weeks holiday a year just ain't enough. Well, it's actually more divisive than that, Packer, because if you happen to be a fried egg teacher, for example, in other words, an economic teacher, you don't have any extra workload. So they can walk out at 3:30 and into their cars and off. But if you happen to be a history teacher, a geography teacher, or an English teacher, there is always a constant supply of jotters that need to be assessed. And you don't have time during the school day to do that. You're expected to do that after the school day has finished. But all the other teachers, such as the fried egg teachers, technical teachers, PE teachers, they don't have any of that. They just walk out at 3:30. And that's always been a bone of contention. Triple M, the school nurse, Nitty Nora, the flea explorer. Gosh, I'd forgotten about that. That's right. We used to get the school nurse in, check everyone's head, make sure there's no head lice. Yeah, I've forgotten about that. Yeah, and that was one of the things that my mother was doing on Sunday night. You know, I'd kneel down and she would have a newspaper across her lap and one of these fine combs, and she would comb my hair out to make sure there was no nits, as she called them, in my head. I'd forgotten about that. That used to happen on a Sunday night. Amazing. And of course, when they finally came along with the idea of school camp holidays, you needed to go through a medical inspection to get to be allowed to go in one of them. And we'd be given Solio, bottle of Solio, pink stuff that your parent would put on your head and rub into your skull to kill nits, head lice in other words. Streaky's at it now. We were poor, says Streaky, but we kids used to circle on our Labrador bitch, Goldie, for milk. That's a good one. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. The school nurse. They check your teeth, you know, look in your ear. I suppose on one level, you know, there would be children who would require that check on, you know, personal hygiene standards. I'm sure that did apply. That's it. A bone comb. There's probably too much of that pack of branded clothes and a new phone, but no money to feed the kids. Yeah. I'll bet that goes on. No party is our friend. Well, I would disagree with that, of course. I would say that the Pensioners' Party is your friend, and I would say that John Lawrence's party is your friend, but we're not in the Major League. Good evening, Duck. And I'm sure that's what you mean, of course. But no, none of them are. None of them. They're all the same. And that's, to say that today is a truism. At one point, you could argue that there were differences, but not anymore. Those days are gone. Jemima, good evening. Jemima, Puddle Duck, Puddle. And by the way, folks, I am doing my best. I'm doing my best with the smoking. You might be shocked when I say this, but I am doing my best to get it down to one packet of cigarettes a day. I'm working on it. Budgie, I had a teacher who had a large selection of slippers, from big giant clown ones to tiny little baby ones, depending on how much you deserved a spank. God. Oh, amazing. That's amazing. It was always the strap in the hand up here, Budgie. All this talk of nits is making me itch, says Steve. No, I remember them in secondary school, October. But obviously, I'm a good deal older than most of you here, or all of you. All these things were gradually removed. Ever heard of that one, Steve? Our school made us chew pink tablets which showed up plaque on your teeth. Don't recollect that. Remember that at all? I don't think we did that up here. Steve saying, yes, John, your cough is bad. Yeah. Well, as I say, I'm doing my best to get it down to a packet a day. And you'll notice what I say, it's down to. Treble M. John, the way I gave up ciggies was by cutting down to 10 and trying to give some of the 10 away. I weaned myself off. I'm not trying to stop, folks. I'm not. I've got no intentions of stopping. But I know I need to cut the consumption down. I can't argue with you, October. It's a lot of money, you're saying, to be going up and smoke. No, how could I possibly argue with you? Well, I just simply read it as Siggy's Skywalker because I knew that's what she meant. So I'm working on it, folks. Getting close to that. Someone told me yesterday, says Steve, that Siggy's are £15 a packet now. It depends on the brand. But it's getting too close to that. No, I know no one's judging me here. You're all trying to be helpful. I know that. I understand that. And I appreciate that. But I don't like this cough, cough, coughing. I don't like it at all. I was never very good at that, Duck. How you consider rollers with filters. And I know it's cheaper. A good deal cheaper, to be honest, Duck. But I was never very good, and I was never very impressed with those machines that you could buy. I used to see the men in the yard with them. always count as your one of your 5 a day too. So I just thought I would mention it in passing. I am making an effort. I've seen people do. I mean, some people are, very, very good at that. Rolling and they put a filter tip in it as well. I've seen it. I've seen people that, well, it's a long time ago, of course, an age ago, in the yards and in factories, you would see men that could roll with one hand, roll it. Use two hands to, prepare the thing, but they would just roll it with one hand and it looked terrific. But there you go. In fact, I was quite shocked a couple of years back, and I do mean a couple of years back. Alison bought me a part of my Christmas present. She put in a packet of Benson and Hedges. Now, that used to be the brand that I always smoked, Benson and Hedges. But obviously, as the price went up, I had to stop. Went on to cheaper brands. But I was in the shop where they sell Benson and Hedges, and I happened to ask. And it was a couple of years ago, they were well over £15 a packet. Again, Doc, I don't use filters myself though, John. I suggested the filters because of the cough. If I had the patience to try it and stick with it, I probably wouldn't bother with the filters myself. It seems awfully footery to me. I know I need to get rid of this cough. Good God, Packer. That's a skill in itself. I could roll a spliff rather, one-handed, complete with roach whilst driving. I used to have to lay it all out when I had a car. I had to lay it all out so that if I felt like a cigarette, I could reach over and pull a cigarette out and the lighter would be next to it and all that kind of carry on. I cannot imagine how anyone could do that. That's a real skill. Well, I liked the brand. I mean, I smoked it because of the brand. October, with the classy growing up gold packets. Well, as I say, I smoked them a long time. And then when Nigel Lawson decided that cigarettes would go up every year without fail, it soon became too expensive to buy. And now we're smoking cigarettes that go out, as you can see. There's no real taste to them anymore. There's no differences between the brands that I can detect. Because it's processed in a different way. What's that you're saying, Steve? I have a cough like yours, John, not from smoking, but from grinding disc dust, brake dust, welding and spraying cars without adequate breathing apparatus. I'm sure that'll do it every time. Shipyard welders were the same. They were the same. They would get it from the fumes. Ludwig saying, I said before, but a tea made from grated fresh ginger and chopped thyme is a great expedient. Explorated. Really helps clear your chest. Worth a go, as it tastes lovely. See, when people recommend things like that to me, it goes in my mind, and I say, right, I must have a shot at that and see if that works. And then it goes out. I forget about it. I'm such a creature of habit. And I am. I'm a creature of habit. See, I better write that down, or it'll go out of my mind. That's why I write things down now. I never used to need it. My memory worked almost 100%. Fresh ginger. I'll try and make an effort to get these ingredients. It's not something I have in the house. It keeps me awake, this. And you definitely don't want to see me in the morning, I'll tell you that. The amount of mucus that come up, I don't want to talk about it. It's disgusting. Lambert and Butler, yeah, that was another good brand. Well, give it a good stewing, right? You got to stew the tea for 5 minutes and then pour through a sieve. So you're talking about actual tea leaves then. You're talking about loose tea, not tea bags. Well, I've got the sieve. I've got all of that. Belonged to Helen's mum. I better write that down then. Stew the tea. My son drinks tea. I'll do my best to remember, Ludwig. And obviously, if there's an improvement, you'll notice it straight away. Eh? Here's something that I found interesting. Don't know if anyone else has seen it, but I thought this was interesting enough to bring to you. If you haven't seen it, Egyptian and Australian enigma.
Water National Park, Australia, there is an enigma called the Gosford Hieroglyphs. Two huge walls are covered in carvings, which have been identified as Egyptian in origin. The carvings tell of a prince called Nefertiru, who came to the area by sea and was killed by snakebite and buried at that location. These hieroglyphs have been identified by the National Library of Cairo as being Proto-Egyptian, dating back 4,600 years ago. This coincides with the reign of Nefertiru, about 2600 BC. Added to this strange fact is the appearance of boomerangs made from ironwood in collections of Egyptian treasure, and also carvings on temple walls showing Aboriginals wielding boomerangs. So who discovered Australia? Step aside, Captain Cook. In Brisbane Water National Park, Australia, there is an enigma called the Gosford Hieroglyphs. Two huge walls are covered in carvings, which have been identified as Egyptian in origin. The carvings tell of a prince called Nefertiru, who came to the area by sea and was killed by snakebite and buried at that location. These hieroglyphs have been identified by the National Library of Cairo as being Proto-Egyptian, dating back 4,600 years ago. This coincides with the reign of Nefertiru, about 2600 BC. Added to this strange fact is the appearance of boomerangs made from ironwood in collections of Egyptian treasure, and also carvings on temple walls showing Aboriginals wielding boomerangs. So who discovered Australia? Step aside, Captain Cook.
I thought that was interesting. Certainly raises questions, doesn't it? Certainly raises questions. Well, I've got a couple more. This is an entertaining short one, and again, I hope you haven't seen it. So it's all about the monkey here, of course.
In the zoo, this woman is performing a magic trick on this monkey, and its reaction is going to be absolutely incredible. Just by looking at its gaze, it is adorable, and it is attentively watching this woman, who initially puts some kind of bowl in the cup. Then, off camera, she shakes the cup, the ball inside, and the monkey keeps its eyes fixed on the object. The woman then puts the cup down and removes the lid. The monkey looks around, attentive, but the ball disappeared, and at that moment, listen to its reaction. Watch, it collapses to the ground, laughing, magnificent. A beautiful scene happened in the zoo. This woman is performing a magic trick on this monkey, and its reaction is going to be absolutely incredible. Just by looking at its gaze, it is adorable, and it is attentively watching this woman, who initially puts some kind of bowl in the cup. Then, off camera, she shakes the cup, the ball inside, and the monkey keeps its eyes fixed on the object. The woman then puts the cup down and removes the lid. The monkey looks around, attentive, but the ball disappeared, and at that moment, listen to its reaction. Watch, it collapses to the ground, laughing, magnificent. A beautiful scene happened in the zoo. This woman is performing a magic trick on this monkey, and its reaction is going to be absolutely incredible. Just by looking at its gaze, it is adorable, and it is attentively watching this woman, who initially puts some kind of bowl in the cup. Then, off camera, she shakes the cup, the ball inside, and the monkey keeps its eyes fixed on the object. The woman then puts the cup down and removes the lid. The monkey looks around, attentive, but the ball disappeared, and at that moment, listen to its reaction. Watch, it collapses to the ground, laughing, magnificent. Beautiful.
Brilliant, eh? Yeah, I think you're right there, Edmund. These Egyptians seem to have travelled far and wide, don't they? Seems that way. No, he's not laughing. You don't think he's laughing, do you? I don't know enough about that particular type of animal, whether that's a laugh or whatever. It could be another response. It certainly looks like laughter, and from the little you can actually hear, it sounds like laughter. Maybe the joke's on the woman with the magic trick. Maybe it looks like a orangutan type. But whatever it is, it perhaps it's saying to itself, she's not fooling me for one moment. But it's endearing. Right. Bass is saying big apes have humour, believe me. I've got no in-depth knowledge of animals to be able to draw conclusions like that myself, with any high degree of certainty. But it looks as though it's having fun. It certainly doesn't look as though it's frightened in any way. It doesn't even look puzzled. Obviously, whatever it is, it's enjoying the moment. So who knows, folks? You can never tell. Be nice if they, well, maybe it wouldn't be nice. I was going to say it'd be nice if they could speak to us, but I'm sure if they could speak to us, somebody would find a fault, an offence, and discourage the whole idea. But it's all seemed to me that since industrialization came along, that certainly in Europe and elsewhere, we've lost that direct connection to the animal world. It's worse now for children. At least when I was a child, we still had horses. Oh, it's a baby orangutan, right? Thanks, Treble M. As I say, when I was just a boy, a very young boy, we still had plenty of horses on the streets. Working horses, of course. Sometimes shire horses, but others just big, bulky horses pulling wagons of all sorts. Bass is saying, I know when chimps pout their lips and make the sound, they are enjoying in glee or some sorts. Should be the sound, of course. Right on cue, Steve. Thank you. It's ring a ding ding. And we have a few missing personnel tonight, but she's not banned, Duck. I don't know what's causing that. I checked it up as far as I could. There's none on my side, I know that. The last person I banned from this channel was that Billy Blogs character. Yeah, I know. That's one that's missing. I hadn't forgotten, Steve. I don't have any way of connecting with him. Billy Blogs is just a bit autistic, says October. Well, I didn't like, I do encourage questions, you know that, you all know that. But his questions always seem to be leading towards certain conversations that Mr. YouTube and company don't care for. And there's many conversations that Mr. YouTube does not care for. And he is that. He's very argumentative. I mean, I did address that on Tuesday when he challenged me about what was done to the Native Americans without any reference. The trouble is, folks, that if I say something happened and somebody says, oh no, it didn't, that in itself isn't a rebuttal. Because in order for a rebuttal to be a proper rebuttal, it has to be supported by something. And he offered no support for his rebuttal. And that's why I had to address it on the Tuesday night. If he can show me or point me to a document that is a proper rebuttal of that information, then I will quite happily amend my own information on it. Yes, he did say that. He mentioned that when his dog goes, he was going to go on a world adventure. And I remember him saying that. And perhaps his dog has passed away. And perhaps that's what he's done. And the main problem is, the main question is he okay? So that just clears that up. He was the last person I ever banned, and it was because of these, what I saw as leading questions into conversations that I could easily answer if we were in the same room. But under these circumstances, it's very difficult to give proper answers to certain questions on certain topics, shall we say. I've got one more short for you play it. Well, I used to be subbed to Dangerfield. I first came across him when he was in Soho, and he was only starting out with 100 or so, and I enjoyed his crazy stories. To be honest, it was just a question for me that I couldn't really identify with him at all, because his conversations were always circled around adventures when he was drunk and on drugs. And it grew thin for me. But that's only me. It's not a criticism of him, it's a criticism of me. There has to be a certain amount of identification with either the person or the subject matter they engage in. In this short, he's not saying anything that we don't agree with. I just thought it would be interesting for you to hear such an eminent figure say the things that we all say.
Has become much more expensive, that energy is more expensive, that many consumer goods are simply unavailable. Can you not see that this is going to get worse if the Deloitte-style moralists have their way? How much short-term pain are you going to be required to sustain? Decades worth? All your life and the life of your children? It's very likely. For your own benefit. Remember that. And all this painful privation is not only not going to save the planet, it's going to make it far worse. Have you all noticed that food has become much more expensive? That shelter has become much more expensive? That energy is more expensive? That many consumer goods are simply unavailable? Can you not see that this is going to get worse if the Deloitte-style moralists have their way? How much short-term pain are you going to be required to sustain? Decades worth? All your life and the life of your children? It's very likely. For your own benefit. Remember that. And all this painful privation is not only not going to save the planet, it's going to make it far worse. Have you all noticed that food has become much more expensive? That shelter has become much more expensive? That energy is more expensive? That many consumer goods are simply unavailable? Can you not see that this is going to get worse if the Deloitte-style moralists have their way? How much short-term pain are you going to be required to sustain? Decades worth? All your life and the life of your children? It's very likely. For your own benefit. Remember that. And all this painful privation is not only not going to save the planet, It's going to make it far worse. Have you all noticed that food has become much more expensive? That shelter?
Anglo. Billy Blogs is known as Niggling Bill for a reason. Very contrarian, in my opinion. Well, again, to answer the broader question here, it wasn't because of one stream. He had become a regular here. Okay? And it was regularly you would get these questions. And they were always leading to areas that cannot be properly discussed when I'm operating under censorship rules. Because a lot of the answers are nuanced. Very rarely do you get a question posed by anyone, whether it's here or in life, but it's very rare to get a question given to you that requires a yes or no answer. And quite often, your answer will be nuanced. But you just can't get near certain topics. You know all that. All of you know this. And the other thing to remember was that, well, that's right, and they always appeared that way to me, to be leading questions. In the early days, that I did throw a few people off for the same reason. There was a time when I started out at first, I refused to even mention the Austrian painter because I knew it was a taboo subject. And when you're getting that 3 times a week from the same individual, as I was, I then begin to question the motives. So I hope you see my point. It's not anywhere near the same if one of you good people then bring up a question about that particular period in European history, and I can in part deal with it. But it seemed to be constant. So it gets wearisome. And I don't like it. I'd rather be in a position when you ask me a question, I'm able to answer it as best I can with as much nuance as I think is needed. And I've had enough of these leading questions that I knew would just create more leading questions. So I hope that explains it. And for long enough, he kept trying to talk to me when I would appear on other channels, asking me to let him come back on again. But as I've already said about this is why I'm absolutely reluctant to ban anyone, because I don't know how to unban someone. There doesn't seem to be a mechanism for that. It's a common thread on our side of the fence, John, to expect people to be explicit 100% of the time, unnecessarily so. Yeah. Well, you're all sitting there with vast wads of knowledge about all sorts of stuff. And so therefore, if we enter into certain histories, anytime I've ever brought it up, as far as I can remember, I'm pointing out things that you will not readily find in history books. And I've got a whole load of history books here on that subject. So I can talk about it till the cows come home. And if we were all sitting in my kitchen and you wanted to, that wouldn't be a problem. But you know, all of us are regulated. I don't even know how much of that applies to you as the chat. Just no idea. So anyway, I'm going to wind up the live stream. Now remember, I will not be starting until 10:30 tomorrow. Okay? If that's too late for you, well, that's fine. But I will come on at 10:30 and we'll take it from there. Okie doke. My pal's coming down. I'm hoping it's going to be good and we'll get outside and have a fire running and we'll have a few drinks and a Cuban cigar out the back. I think that's another common strand, Steve. I do enjoy looking at a well-built cathedral. I think that runs through all of us. Cologne is, whoa. Something else. And then again, so's York. Anyway, I'm going to bring on the music. Oh, it will be October. We always have great conversations. And he's a good lad. He's well versed in many things, like the rest of us. Again, don't worry about it. It may just be it may be too late for many people traveling. Don't fret on it. When I come on here, especially when the weather's good, I don't expect as many people to show up because the weather's good. I expect that people are out doing something because of the weather. That's really the truth of the matter. So if it's too late, then fine. Don't fret on it. Because there are people on the chat that get up early. And I notice Robert Ingram isn't with us tonight again. That's nice. That's nice. Take care. He said, Bass, you're a treasure as your friends here. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, yours beautiful. I happened to see it when it was covered in scaffolding, unfortunately, but it was beautiful inside, as always these places are. Oh, there he is there. Robert Ingram is with us. He must have been lurking. Good evening, Robert. I just mentioned your name there. Oh, there's Toffee. Glad to be off social media. It's toxic, says Toffee. Glad not to be streaming anymore. Well, at least you're still with us. That's the main thing. For the moment. At least you're here. Don't have to fret over you not being here. Where is he? What is he up to? Is he okay? One in the chat for Toffee, man. I'll do that before I start up the music. One in the chat. Illuminatus. Good evening. Yeah, well, I heard some kind of whisper that Toffee was going through some kind of surgery. I don't know if that's just a rumour or there's some truth to it. If there's truth to it, then I hope you're well and you've come through it. So anyway, I'll start up the music. And remember, 10:30 tomorrow night. Okay, doke. If you're here, great. Yeah, we need to look out for Raymond. That's the other one that's missing. And Ian Barr. So, take care, my friends. And I'll speak to whoever's here tomorrow night. So, as I always say, adios, au revoir, cheerio, and until tomorrow night, 10:30. Take care. Well, we know Dawn's all right. We just don't understand why she doesn't seem to appear in the chat, although she's not banned. I have no idea.
Silently the snow falls, paints a winter scene, swiftly spreads the dark rim, hides a fading autumn green. Moonbeams brush the dark wood, conjure friendships dear to me. Lightly now the breeze flows, disturbing more than just the leaves. But life's much more than we can know. We are one small globe in the eternal flow. Patiently the love grows,
Fair enough, Eamon.
lifts the weary heart. Gently now she holds me, melts two worlds once apart. Moonbeams brush the dark wood, usher dreams of you and me. Softly then the breeze blows, disturbing more than just the trees. But love's much more than we can know. We are one small globe in the eternal flow. Melodies of long ago, songs of innocence, harmonies to soothe the soul, have some consequence. Moonbeams brush the dark wood, awakening joys of you and me. Silently the snow falls, bringing winter symphony.
All together now.
But we're much more than we can know. We are one small globe in the eternal flow. But life's much more than we can know. We are one small globe in the eternal flow.
Well, that went rather quick, didn't it? Yeah, late show tomorrow night, folks. And we'll see what happens. So you all take care, and thank you all for being here. Thanks to the great moderators, as always. And if you're not coming tomorrow night, Treble M, I hope you enjoy the rest of the weekend, whatever you do. And hopefully I'll see you, the rest of you, here tomorrow night. So, well, it was just a whisper I heard, Toffee, that you were getting some alteration, and then I was putting that together with your accident that you had a while back there, so I thought it was connected to that. But obviously not. So long as you're feeling better, that's the main thing. So, take care, my friends, and I'll speak to you real soon, like tomorrow night. So it's bye for now. Take care.